All right, everybody, I have some good news. Which is MGK is back. For some of you, this will be bad news. I actually think this song is really good, and it's interesting, and I want to talk about it because I think he says some things in this video that are really thought-provoking and interesting, and I think the song is good, and I would like to talk about it. So let's check it out. I will give you my thoughts on it, and we can go from there. So this song is called Don't Let Me Go. Just came out yesterday, and yeah, let's check it out. And also, I wanted to mention something new that I'm doing, which is a YouTube coaching program. If you're an individual creator or you're a company, really anybody that wants to grow on YouTube, this is for you. Basically, this is a way to download everything that I have learned about YouTube over the past 7 years from my brain into yours. There's a pretty common set of challenges that pretty much everybody runs into on YouTube. I've run into pretty much all of them. And with this coaching program, I can help you get past those a lot faster than I did figuring it out on my own. For example, in my opinion, the single most important thing for any channel is figuring out the right niche for your content. Like, what should you focus on and how do you talk about it? For example, for me on this channel, once I found that, I went from getting, a couple hundred views a video to tens of thousands of views per video, literally almost overnight. You can see it right here. And also the right approach to things like titles and thumbnails and how to structure your videos to keep people's attention. All that stuff that took me years to figure out on my own through trial and error. I just want to help you speed run all of that. I am super excited about this, and I'm going to be putting a lot of time and energy into it over the course of the year. And if you want to find out more about it, you can just hit the link in the description of this video. Yeah, he's rapping again, yes. So first of all, let me just say the narrative about him has always been like, oh, Eminem ruined his career, so, he switched genres to run away from Eminem, which number one is not true. He had a rap album called the Hotel Diablo that came out after the Eminem thing, which I'm pretty sure was like his most popular rap album. It was like number 5 on Billboard or something like that. So not true. And second, he's at the place in his career, I think, when he just kind of makes whatever music he wants to make. Like, you can hate his music, that's okay, but it's not true that like Eminem made him change genres, and besides which, now he's back to making rap anyway, so it is what it is.
Lately my thoughts eating me alive. Maybe that hate will finally go away if I'm not alive. I had a breakdown and tatted my entire body except one line.
So, this song is basically like I would call it sort of a cry for help, I would call it, or at least sort of, he's letting us know that he's having a lot of serious mental health issues. And so, like, what's the line here about his tattoos?
One time, I had a breakdown and tatted my entire body except one line.
I had a breakdown and tatted my entire body except for one line. So what he's talking about here, as you may have seen, he blacked out like almost his whole body. I don't know if he's going to finish it or what, but he blacked out almost his whole body here with this, and people got mad at it. It's kind of funny. Some of the comments are kind of funny. Like somebody said, Kells wanted to be accepted by the rap community, so he turned black. Popular podcaster Nadav Itzkowitz wrote, "You still can't say it," seemingly in reference to the use of the N-word. While another follower flatly stated, "Bro wants to say the N-word so badly." That was pretty funny. I saw this and my thought was like, wow, that's pretty extreme. I mean, having tattoos all over your whole body, I would say at this point, that's not really that big of a deal. But when you see this kind of like really extreme blackout type stuff, I think that is kind of like, that would make me raise an eyebrow about somebody's mental health, which in the song, that's what he says. Like, I had a breakdown and I tattooed my whole body except for one line. I mean, the song is called Don't Let Me Go, which sort of would imply to me that he's on the edge of going. And, the song is basically him saying, like, I'm not doing so well.
Slipping again, there I go slipping again. I'm acting different again. I see my family's reflection every time I look in the cup and I sip it again. Before my dad left this earth, he made sure I took on every quality I didn't want. I was supposed to die.
There's an interesting line there. He said, before my dad left this earth, he made sure I had every quality I didn't want, or whatever it was, which is one of these interesting moments that you have. I mean, this happened to me, like with my mom. My mom was like a very troubled person, and I, sort of had a moment where I always promised myself, like, oh, I'm not going to be like my mom, and then I had a moment, when I was probably like 32, 33 or something, and I was like, shit, I'm doing everything my mom did. I'm drinking a lot. I have all these like failed relationships. You have these moments where you look in the mirror and you're like, shit, I became my parents as much as I didn't want to. And so I think it's interesting that he's having this realization, but I also agree with this from the chat here. This is toxic. He whines about his mental health, but he won't even do anything about it. And I think that's accurate. There's a thing that they talk about in like 12-step programs that they call a moment of clarity. You know, people also call it hitting rock bottom. And basically what that means is that addicts, and I'm not saying that MGK is an addict because, you know, I don't know him personally, but he certainly seems to have a similar type of mentality to addicts, let's put it that way, where addicts don't change until they hit rock bottom or have that moment of clarity. And the moment of clarity comes in one of two forms, or maybe both. Number one is you realize that if you don't change what you're doing, you're going to die. Number two is if you wake up and you hate the person that you've become. Those are basically the two things that lead people, you know, to make a change. But at the end of the day, you know, recognizing that you need to make a change, that's cool. But what are you going to actually do about it? And I'll talk more about this, but that's sort of my question for MGK is like, you know, he's made a lot of songs like this where he's sort of acknowledged that he's had these struggles. And we go, cool, well, you've got all the money in the world. You have all the resources in the world. You don't ever have to work another day in your life. What's stopping you, right? What's stopping you?
Gave me a chance and I fucked it up. Give me another one. I've been running from secrets I hid as a kid and I never confronted them.
I will say though, also, I think this song is really good. MGK's pop punk stuff, I think, is fine. You know, obviously it sounds like Blink, and I don't know that he necessarily like has a great voice for it. So, you know, I would say his pop punk stuff was okay, but I think he's actually really fucking good when he does this kind of music that's like not quite, you know, emo rap, alternative rap, but it's like kind of almost in that direction. I think he's actually really fucking good. So I want to give him credit for that. I think this song is cool. I really like those like table drums. And it reminds me of this song he did a couple years ago with Lil Wayne called A, which is really fucking good. Like this song is fucking excellent.
To myself. Hey,
like, this is really catchy.
Hey, only comments I see are the bad ones.
A similar kind of message, though, is sort of like him just sort of acknowledging that he's struggling with all this stuff. And that's cool. I'm glad that he's acknowledging it. And I think that, you know, will help some people. But at the end of the day, you know, acknowledging it is only the first step. You got to actually do something about it.
I'm coming back, just let me go. Who am I when the music stops? And the character that I've been playing is really just broken and fucking lost.
I mean, and so this is sort of getting to what he said, who am I when the music stops? You know, he talks about playing this character and stuff. And this is one of these things where you kind of wonder, are these people addicted to fame? Are they like addicted to the spotlight? He said, who am I when the music stops, right? Even though he presumably has enough money that he doesn't have to work another day in his life. And, you know, if I was in this situation, I'd be like, clearly being in the spotlight is not healthy for me. I'm going to step out, right? I'm just going to go work on myself and not make music for a while, or maybe not ever make music for a while. He doesn't seem to have that ability. And, you know, I don't know what it's like being as famous as he is. And I don't know what it's like, you know, being surrounded by whoever he's surrounded by. But you got to think that there's nobody in his life that's telling him to stop, right? Because everybody in his life gets paid when he works, right? Like his booking agent gets paid when he plays shows. His manager gets paid when he, you know, puts out records. So, you know, producers get paid when he works, right? So everybody in his life is going to encourage him to keep going, right? I don't know the people in his life, but I would have to imagine they're all incentivized for him to keep working, even though like it's pretty clear that being in the spotlight is not good for him. And yet everybody in his life is telling him to keep going. And this is not really unique to MGK or unique to famous people in general. The thing I wanted to bring up is that I think the culture of music as a whole, it encourages you to be sad, right? Because as much as people say that they want you to get better, do they really? Because fans and the media and the press, they're going to, like when he puts out a song like this, where he's like obviously in a bad place, people are going to reward him with attention and praise and be like, oh, this is amazing. It's a great song. You know, you're so vulnerable, right? And it's true. This is a good song. And they'll say, oh, it helps me so much when you talk about this stuff, which maybe it does. But at a certain point, I think a lot of the things that fans and critics and the industry and like that everybody wants you to do are not healthy, right? Like fans, they'll tell you that they want you to be happy, but do they really? Do they really? Like, you'll get the best feedback on your art when you're in a shitty place. Unfortunately, it's true. And I've talked to a lot of artists who have gotten sober And I've asked, I've done it on my podcast and stuff, asked him about it. I'd be like, well, were you afraid of getting sober because you thought your music might suck? And all of them were like, yeah, I actually kind of was, because yeah, it's true. How the sober albums are the worst. That usually is the case, which is unfortunate. I wonder how much of that is going on with him, is just that fans in the industry and basically everything about being a public figure and a rapper is basically encouraging you to do dysfunctional, self-destructive things and encouraging you to be unhappy. He's basically saying, I wonder what I'm like when the music stops. It seems like he sort of realizes that that might be true, but he feels like he can't step out of the spotlight because this is, his identity.
My heart was broken like my ribs as a kid. With me and my father fought. Medicating with something that I cannot pronounce, but it's what the doctor gave me.
And so here he's kind of acknowledging stuff. He's acknowledging, that a lot of the reasons why he's like this is because of childhood issues. And he's saying he's medicating because of something the doctor gave him. And all that's cool, but I wish that I knew him, because I would like to just be like, well, dude, you can stop this anytime. And in fact, the only person who has the power to change your life is you. Like, you have the power anytime to stop this, right? Like, all these childhood issues, you have the power to let those go. I know it's easier said than done, but you have the power to let it go. I don't know what the other people in his life are telling him. I would hope that there's people who are saying that. Pain is more tempting than happiness. That's what it is. He's 33 years old, and at a certain point, if you're 33 years old, I don't mean to be, it sounds harsh to say this, but when I was 33 years old, I was doing a lot of dumb shit and I blamed it on my childhood and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is, I was 33 years old and you're an adult, and you just got to put your big boy pants on and stop doing dumb shit. You just kind of got to get over it. And I know that that's easier said than done. And I know that's kind of simplistic, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's like, you're a grown ass man. You got to let this shit go. You know what I mean? And all the complaining in the world is not going to make you feel better. You got to just let this stuff go.
Constantly dreading the day that the audience might not be screaming for me anymore.
Like he said, constantly dreading for the day the audience might not be screaming for me anymore. I get that. People can be addicted to fame and validation from strangers, just like they can be addicted to anything else, whether it's food or sex or gambling or drugs or whatever. It's all the same thing, which is that you're trying to fill some sort of a void inside. You're trying to fill that with something else. And it doesn't work ever. It has never worked for a single person ever in the history of mankind. It has never worked ever. Clearly, what's happening is he has whatever these issues because of childhood trauma, and he's trying to fill that with attention, which is the reason why he does all this dumb shit, right? Like, he does all this obnoxious stuff. He acts out and does something obnoxious and gets a bunch of attention for it. And then he gets upset when he gets negative attention for it, which is the same thing like when I was in 4th grade and I would act out for attention. It's the same shit. And then eventually I grew out of it. Except he's 33 years old. And I get what he's saying, that, his whole identity is tied to being this famous rapper and stuff, but it doesn't work ever. It will never work. So at a certain point, you just kind of got to make the decision to be the person that you want to be. And I know that sounds like kind of a Jordan Peterson kind of thing or something like that. But if you're 33 years old and you know that you have all these things going on, you just got to make the decision to get over it. And there's no other way around it. You do have free will. That's right.
If I'm never coming back after I leave out the door, I'm coming back, don't let me go. I'm coming back, just let me go.
My perspective on a lot of this childhood trauma kind of stuff is, I told my mom this, I don't know, she was 60 or something like that. It was before she died. But childhood trauma is not your fault, but it is your problem. Unfortunately, it's kind of like getting hit in the crosswalk by a drunk driver and they break your leg or something. It's not your fault that you got hit when you were just, crossing the street, but unfortunately it is your problem. And you can be mad and you can blame that drunk driver and you can scream and yell about it all you want, but it's not going to heal that broken leg. It's your responsibility to, go to the doctor and go through physical therapy and all that shit and take care of that broken leg. Unfortunately, it's not your fault. It isn't. But God took a shit on you and dropped this thing in your lap, and you got to figure it out. That's sort of the same thing that I would say to MGK. It's like, man, you're 33 years old. I get it. The way you grew up sounds fucked up and it sucks. It's too bad and it's not your fault. But here we are. You're 33 years old. what are you going to do about it? Yeah, life's not fair. It sucks. Life's not fair. It's not my mom's fault that her dad was a fucking abusive piece of shit and that both of her parents died of cancer. It's not her fault, but it was her problem. I mean, I think it's interesting. Number one, like, let's give him credit where it's due. I think the song is good. Like, I legitimately think the song is good. Let's give him some credit where it's due. Number two, I think he's right. The people in the rock scene are kind of unfairly, like, hateful to him. I think that's true, although he does bring that on himself. And number three, most importantly, I think the takeaway here for anybody who's watching this that might relate to what he's saying is it's not your fault, but it is your problem. And you have the power to let this shit go. I know it's easier said than done, but wallowing in it is not the answer. You got to let it go. You got to move on. Don't let this stuff have power over you for the rest of your life. Easier said than done, but don't let the fact that your dad was an asshole to you when you were 10 years old or whatever, don't let that control you for the rest of your life. Okay. So that's my message. Credit to MGK where it's due. I think it's a damn good song, and whatever's going on with him, I genuinely hope he gets better. I really do. The only person who has the power to change your life is you.